Hey everybody, welcome to the AME television show. I'm Jason Dowd, your host, and I have some great places and things for you to see today. We're going to be going to Central Florida to go to the home of Chuck Faulkner. He is the owner of the Harry Sonntag collection. Harry Sonntag was an artist between the 1950s and 60s. He documented all the Florida Keys from Key Largo all the way back down to Key West. His stuff was supposedly lost, but it ended up in Chuck Faulkner's hands, and he's displaying it for you guys so you could see it, and I'll tell you the places that you can go visit it if you want to see it. So let's go to Chuck Faulkner's home now, and we'll be right back after this.
Hey everybody, I am here with Chuck Faulkner. We're in Central Florida, and we're going to be talking about an amazing artist that has a lot of history here in Florida. Mostly the Florida Keys, though, and his work has been documenting the Florida Keys from the 40s and 50s and 60s, maybe 60s. I don't know if he was still around by then, but anyways, we're going to talk to him about his collection because Chuck owns the collection. So welcome to the show, Chuck.
Well, thank you, Jason. And actually, the gallery burnt down in '55, so that's about the time we feel that he left the Keys.
Okay. What's really cool about him is his lifestyle. I think that's really what sticks out the most to me because he really did live the lifestyle of an artist. And people, expect artists to be living in these big studios. He didn't really do that. In fact, it was kind of almost to the point of condemnable, but he lived in it. Tell us about how he lived here in the state of Florida.
Well, he got here about 1949. He was in the area just south of Key Largo, Rock Harbor, and he found a little shack that was in disarray, and he sort of put it back together, and it looked like about an 8x10 sort of shanty-type home, and he lived in that for about 5 years. He lived off the land. He grew his own garden, caught fish, and lived off the land, basically.
How did he impact the state? Because obviously, like we said, cameras were still kind of new. I mean, not everybody had one in their pocket. So how could he change and document Florida and, have the Florida history, especially in the Keys? And maybe not so much in this area, but the Florida Keys.
Well, Harry started painting when he got here. We think about 1949, and what he was capturing the unspoiled landscapes. There was no canals dug yet. They didn't really dig the canals, I don't believe, till like the late 50s, early 60s. They started cutting canals because it was waterfront property and they could get more money for it. But he was here when there was none of that going on, and he documented also the working fishermen. The working fishermen, that's what they did for a living. So as you see in the painting right behind us here, he captured the big dolphin being cleaned on the docks, and that was a daily thing that was going on in the Keys back then. So that was their lifestyle.
Now, what was his mediums? Was it strictly watercolor like I've seen, or does he have other types of artwork out there?
Most of them are watercolors. There are 170 pieces in the collection. There is one oil painting, and there are a couple charcoals. They were different sizes. The average size was about 11 by 15. There was a couple larger, and then there was about 30 paintings that were actually 5.5 inches by 7.5 inches. So he did a small format also.
Now, obviously, the watercolors would be on paper. What were the backings and stuff for his oil paintings and his charcoals?
The charcoals were also done on it looked like a watercolor type paper, and also the oil painting is done on a canvas board.
And obviously the place has grown up since then, but are there still some of the places that he painted that's still in existence? Can you go see it and kind of see what he saw? Obviously a little bit more grown up.
Sure. He lived around the Mandalay Marina, which is the south edge of Key Largo in Rock Harbor, and the Mandalay, he probably painted about maybe 8 or 10 images of the Mandalay, which if you go there today you can definitely see that it's still the same buildings. And then he also went down to Tavernier, which is about 15-20 miles south of Key Largo, and he painted the Tavernier Creek Marina. It was called Rusty's back then, and you can actually go stand exactly where he painted the picture. 1951, he went to a plein air art exhibit. It's actually the first plein air art exhibit they had in Key West, and he set up there and he painted a picture of the art show.
And how many of these pieces do you have physically? Are all of them still in existence, some of them lost, or do you have all of them, or how does this collection stand right now?
Well, I still have all the original collection, which is 170. I haven't sold any of the originals. I'd like to actually keep it and sell it as a collection. I'm finding it hard to find somebody that wants to handle that many pieces, so I am possibly going to break it up into maybe like 3 different collections and sell it that way.
And how can people find you if they are interested in buying this collection? Because I know there's a lot of artists out there, a lot of art collectors. What's the best way for them to contact you if they're interested in seeing it and possibly buying it?
I have created a website, harrysontag.com. That's Sonntag with 2 N's. And I don't sell any items on the website. It's basically for information. I have put about 60 of the original collection on there that you can view, and I have all the newspaper clippings from the early 50s that were found in the collection, and also I was able to track down his birth certificate, death certificate, and that is also on the website.
So you got a lot of documentation as opposed to just artwork. You can see how the artist lived.
Sure, and also I've pretty much collected all the stories and stuff that have been done on Sonntag over the years, and that's on the media page on the website, so you can read all the stories that have been done.
Now, one of the things that you were talking to me about a couple of years ago was how the collection is, because honestly, I think you said that his studio burned down, and they're supposedly lost, but yet you have them. Tell us this story, because it's really interesting.
Well, in 1955, there was a fire, and we found this out about 8 years after I got the collection. It was found by the historian of the Upper Keys. He found an article in the Homestead newspaper, and it said, "Famous art gallery in the Keys destroyed by fire." Well, knowing that I had all the collection, it said the entire contents of the building was destroyed, and it said kept in the building was Sonntag's life's work. I have a bunch of black and white photos that were in the collection, and they show the paintings that are hanging on the wall inside the gallery, and I have all those paintings, so obviously they didn't burn up.
Now, there's a possibility of a little bit of a conspiracy, because I think his New York place burned down too, and all those were missing too. Do you have any of those, or?
I don't know. We're not sure there was a fire in New York. He was interviewed when he opened his gallery in the 50s by the Miami newspaper there, and he said prior coming to the Keys, his studio in New York burned. Now, we don't know if that actually happened, but I do have some New York pieces. I have about 8 paintings that are done in New York, look to be maybe in the early 40s maybe. One's an art show in New York, and the people hustle bustle walking around the art show and stuff, but yeah, there's some New York pieces.
Awesome. How can people see your work, or his work, honestly? Because I know you have like one showing right now. Where can people go if they're in the state of Florida to see the one showing that you have?
Well, it's a small exhibit right now, but it's going to become larger at some point. It's in the Florida Keys History and Discovery Center in Isla Mirada, Florida. They have a small exhibit of Sonntag's work right now. I hope to be expanding that here shortly, so hopefully it'll be a bigger exhibit soon.
Well, I look forward to seeing that, and I hope that everybody can go on to the website, check out his pictures, check out his history, and check out the biography of this amazing artist. Thank you, Chuck, for showing us the collection, spending some time with us, and helping people explore a artist that they may not have known of.
Well, thank you, Jason, and I think Harry would appreciate it too.
Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME. 877-94-HELP-ME. The AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm going to be taking you to downtown Brooksville. We're going to be seeing some really cool places. The first place we're going to be going to is the May Stringer House, one of the most historic houses and haunted houses in the area. Then we're going to go across the street to the Saxon House, and then we're going to be going to the Brooksville Cemetery. You're going to be learning about this entire area because it's one of the three houses are connected to basically be one of the most historic places in the area. So let's go to Brooksville now, and we'll be right back after this.
In 1855, John May was granted land in Brooksville by the federal government to build on and farm while keeping the Indians under control. Today, it's the Brooksville Heritage Museum, and it's open for tours and ghost tours. John May eventually died at a young age, and his wife ran the house and the farm with the slaves. She had married Frank Saxon, who you will learn more about in a bit, and they had a son that died right at birth. She would eventually have another daughter, Jessie May, but unfortunately she lost her life giving birth to her. Jessie would live to the age of 2 before she died, and she is said to haunt the house. After Frank Saxon moved away from the house, a Dr. Sheldon Stringer bought the house. This door is where he brought his patients into the house so that way it wouldn't interfere with his family. The front door is infamous because it's the scene of the area's very first drive-by shooting, but it wasn't by car, rather by horseback. After Dr. Stringer, many owners inhabited the house. The room at the top floor that you see right above the doctor's office was the scene of one of the many deaths that took place in the house. This was a soldier who came back from World War I expecting to find his fiancée waiting for him. When he returned, he found that she had married someone else. Depressed, he hung himself in the room. Today, many people can see the spirit in that room from the road, and it's said that you can see his face when you look in the window. The May Stringer house has various gravestones outside, but these stones have been stolen from local cemeteries. The docents of the home hope a family member will visit and see a stone and claim it. Out back of the house, you will see a memorial garden. It's a peaceful and beautiful garden where you can immortalize your loved ones, right on premises. In the front of the house, right below these garden beds, it's said that John May, Jessie May, and the stillborn son and John's wife are buried. The exact location is unknown, but they do know that they were buried on the property. They died before the Brooksville Cemetery was opened, which is generally custom to bury them on premises back then. This is the Saxon house. After Frank Saxon married Tallulah, they moved in this beautiful house built across the street from the May Stringer house. He lived here until his death in 1920. Frank was a Civil War hero, an active member of the KKK, a judge, and a Florida representative. The house fell in serious disarray and was not long for the wrecking ball. New owners have since gutted the house and turned it into a wedding and banquet hall. Before the reconstruction, I managed to get inside and take some artistic photos of the house in its worst condition. These walls are no longer there, so here are some of my artistic photos portraying the house as it once was. What you are seeing now is the photos from Isolated and Insane and Possessed. Now let's go to the Brooksville Cemetery. We start off with the marker of Charlotte Wynne Piles Crum. Read the plaque, it's a historic story and grave. A grieving father took the likeness of his deceased boys and created an incredible memorial to his son that he lost. It's an incredibly creepy while stunningly beautiful gravesite. Here's the grave of Frank Saxon, probably one of the most notable graves in the cemetery. Here is his entire family, ending with his wife, Tallulah. You can look across the cemetery and see a lot of Confederate soldiers buried here, marked with the Tennessee battle flag. This is a Butterwick crypt, erected in 1916. It's the scene of my favorite love story, and it lasted even in death. And it's the actual location of my piece, I Love You Always, from Dreams, Nightmares, Fears, and Fantasies, Volume 3. You'll see that at the end. The story goes, the wife lost her husband in 1916. He is placed in a glass-top casket that you can actually see in the window from behind the crypt. She adored him, and with his passing, she essentially died too. She came down and would sit with her husband, looking at him through the glass-top casket. When she died in the 1920s, she requested that her children bury her the exact same way as her husband, in a glass-top casket but on a shelf higher than her husband's, so she could watch over him in death. The children thought this was morbid, so they placed her mother in a traditional casket and put her in a wall, as most crypts have. They left her father because they said he was already like that. Since then, you could hear, or supposedly hear, crying from around the crypt. When I heard the story, I did everything I could to get inside that crypt and take a photo. The story haunted me, and I wanted to give this lady what she wanted in my own way. Nobody would let me in, and I couldn't find the family, so I took a picture of the casket through the back window and placed the woman on top to watch over the body of her husband as she wanted. Obviously, this is not the actual woman, and it may not be exactly how she wanted it, but now her legend can live on and her wishes can live on in a photograph. And now the world can see it every time they see the photo, which I'm currently showing you right now.
Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to buyyourtimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. Buyyourtimeshare.com. That's buyyourtimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME. 877-94-HELP-ME. The AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
All right, everybody, we are back, and I'm going to be taking you to Tarpon Springs, down to the historic Sponge Docks. I love the Sponge Docks, one of the best places to go on the weekends to just chill out and enjoy some great Greek food and Greek culture. But at the end of the Sponge Docks happens to be the Tarpon Springs Aquarium. When I discovered this place, I realized that you can feed sharks, you can see people feed sharks, you can feed stingrays, and you can get up close and personal with marine wildlife like I've never seen before in any other aquarium. So let's go over there now, and when we come back, I'm going to be closing out the show and telling you what we got in store. So let's go to Tarpon Springs now.
Hey everybody, I am here in Tarpon Springs, and we are at the Tarpon Springs Aquarium, and we're going to learn a little bit about some fish. This is a really cool place. They have a lot of interactive stuff for you guys to enjoy, and I'm here with Scott, the owner. How you doing, Scott?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
Awesome. So tell me about this place. How did you get in? How did you build? What was the inspiration behind it?
Well, it started, I guess, really when I was a young child, and I decided I wanted to be a marine biologist. After watching some Jacques Cousteau and so forth. I grew up in Indiana in the Midwest, and I didn't really get a chance to even ever see the ocean. I was about 10 years old. I came to Florida to visit my grandmother, and the first time I saw the ocean, that's when I was convinced that I wanted to do something that involved animals of the ocean.
Now, I know we're going to be showing you guys some of the actual feeding of the sharks that are just behind us here. Are these sharks indigenous to this area?
They are. All the animals, for the most part, except for a few exceptions, are animals that were captured right here along our shorelines. So yes.
And what type of sharks do you have here for people to see?
Well, we have we have nurse sharks, and which are a very common species, which do quite well in captivity. We have sandbar sharks, and we typically have hammerhead sharks, small hammerheads, and cat sharks for people to see.
Now, I know sharks are, relatively aggressive sometimes, and they can be very dangerous. So how do you get the feeders to go in there and not get bit by these sharks?
Well, sharks are notorious for being dangerous animals, but they're actually surprisingly timid. And actually, when we get a new shark in the aquarium, it takes several months before they get comfortable enough to even approach the diver. And typically when you're diving in the wild and you see a shark, if you're lucky to see them, they're usually they're getting away from you. They're doing their best to avoid divers. But after a period of time, they get comfortable and they begin to associate you with food, and therefore it kind of creates a more dangerous animal in a sense. But we have found they're not these mindless eating machines. They're actually somewhat timid, and as long as you use some common sense, you can actually get in there and hand feed them like we do.
Now, I've heard something a long time ago about sharks being able to smell a drop of blood from like miles away. Is that true?
Well, it's true. They can smell, I think it's 1 part per billion parts of water. So they have an incredible ability to pick up on the scent of blood. And they're scavengers. And so they need to be able to find animals out there in the ocean that are injured or sick or dying, because that's what they typically feed on.
And I saw some of these little fish, and you just mentioned it in your speech over there, that are attached to these sharks. Are those really like a parasite, or are they just kind of, find like cows have those little white birds by them?
Yeah, they're really not a parasite. They used to think that maybe they were a parasite, and they kind of sucked the blood or something of their host, which is typically a shark. They're known as shark suckers. But they found that they don't. The suction cup has nothing to do with their mouth. It's actually on the top of their head. And then they used to think they clean parasites off of the shark, but now they believe they don't do that either. They basically just a fish that clings on there for transportation, protection, and in the case of a shark, when it's ripping apart its prey, they'll pick up a little the scraps as they break free.
Coming through here, I noticed that you have some actual interactive tanks where people can touch and feel and stuff. What are in those tanks for these kids and these adults to touch and interact with?
Well, we would like to encourage, I think, particularly with children, I guess all of us are adults as well, but there's nothing like the experience of actually touching them and make it seem real. And so we have a lot of interactive tanks where you can touch them. We have stingrays, which are one of the favorites, and we allow people to actually hand feed them. And removing their barb, they're totally harmless. We have sharks that you can feed as well. We're one of the few places I know of where you're allowed to feed sharks. And can't hand feed them, but we feed them off the end of a stick to save your fingers, I guess.
That's important.
Yeah.
You want to have those. You also have some reptiles here. I noticed that you have an alligator and some snakes. How are the snakes and these fish interacting? Why do you have both of them in the aquarium?
Well, originally we did not have any reptiles, and I had someone that wanted to donate a python to the aquarium. This was years ago, and I thought about it a little bit, and I said, well, we'll make a little corner here for the python, and they became, I guess it became kind of a popular with our guests. And then once people saw that we had one python, we had more people wanting to donate animals, and all of our reptiles are unwanted pets that have been donated here at the aquarium. We have a lot of turtles and snakes, and except our alligators come from a local farm.
Have you ever done any shows where you actually get in with the gators, or is that too dangerous?
Well, we feed the gators. We don't get right in with them, but we feed them, from a safe vantage point, and then we do typically get a smallish one out and bring them out to the crowd, can touch them, and once again get that hands-on experience.
How much uptake does it take to keep this place, sanitary for the fish, healthy for the fish, and yet appealing to the eye?
Well, marine exhibits are notoriously difficult. People have zoos of different types of animals, and the marine animals, basically it all depends on the water quality. And if you have good water quality, they typically are healthy, but if the water quality is not what it should be, then they're not going to be healthy. And marine animals are used to a very stable environment out there in the ocean. It doesn't change very little, if at all. And so we bring them in here and we don't maintain that stable environment for them. They're not going to be happy and not healthy. So it takes a lot of work, you know, and you have to stay ahead of it. You can't wait till you have sick animals and then try to address it. You have to keep it, you know, I guess, stable all the time for them. So.
How much does it take to feed one shark per year in terms of money and maybe volume-wise, and how much pounds?
Well, surprisingly, cold-blooded animals like reptiles and fish, they have low nutritional needs in comparison to warm-blooded animals like ourselves. I always like to compare this as we see an alligator and we see a man of similar size. That alligator has a lot bigger mouth, and yes, he might be able to eat more food at one time, but in reality, the man requires, with his high metabolism, requires over 10 times the amount of food. So.
That's very interesting. Well, I don't want to keep you anymore, so thank you for showing us this place, but how can people find you?
Well, we're located in the sponge docks in Tarpon Springs, and on the world-famous sponge docks, but which is just north of Clearwater and along the banks of the Anclote River. And we are online, tarponsprings.aquarium.com.
Awesome, and I will have all their information for you after this segment, so just keep checking it out, check our website, and you'll see all the information there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are you stuck with a timeshare? Did you attend the presentation and were seduced and enticed into buying that great vacation and investment? Now you're in the terrible position of trying to figure out a way to get out of that mess. You're not alone. For over 15 years, BuyYourTimeshare.com has been helping people like yourself get out of timeshare ownership. The fact is, there is no resale market. Unscrupulous telemarketers call you and say they have buyers waiting, and the next thing that happens is you give them hundreds of dollars for an ad, and you'll never hear from them again. Another fact is that an identical timeshare to yours is being offered on eBay for $1, and no one is buying it. If you want out of your timeshare, I urge you to go to BuyYourTimeshare.com or call them at 877-94-HELP-ME. That number again is 877-94-HELP-ME. BuyYourTimeshare.com. That's BuyYourTimeshare.com. 877-94-HELP-ME. 877-94-HELP-ME. The AM/FM 24/7 Roku channel broadcasts all of our shows on demand. To ensure reliability, we store and stream our content on the same servers as Netflix and Amazon. Our Roku channel is free to use, and anyone owning one of the more than 10 million Roku devices can watch our channel at no cost whatsoever. If you have a television show or are thinking about producing a show, you can be a part of AM/FM 24/7's Roku channel. Watch our great shows on your Roku device. It's free and more reliable than cable TV.
Alright guys, I really hope you enjoyed what I had to show you today. We have a lot more stuff coming. I'm going to be traveling to Orlando. We're going to be having some more interviews coming up. And if you want to see any of our past shows, go to www.theamemagazine.com/TV. If there's something you want to see, let me know. I'll be happy to go and explore it for you. And if you have something that is of artistic nature and you want to get on and show your artistic talents, give me a call. I will set it up and we will come out there and show your art to the world. So until then, everybody stay creative and keep those creative juices flowing.